Hi, this is Rust and Magic. Today I thought we would have a peek at the user interface options in Layout and Modeler. So we are in Layout here, and if you press the O button you get into the options, or the D button for the display options. It looks a little bit different in 2024. This is for 2023, but the options are pretty much the same. It just looks different with the tree view on the left side. So under Display, we have the customized interface colors, and that's where we can set up all the different colors. This is for the different types of buttons. If it's an action button or a button that changes state and so on, I prefer to have these in pretty much the same color. It gets very messy if you have different colors here, but it's up to you if you want to use it. It shows you what type of button it is, so you may find it useful. We can set a background image, of course, also, if we want that. That could be for reference or other things. We have the Channels tab where we can set the channel colors. I don't like the default ones. These ones I find are a little bit easier to on the eye in the graph editor. If we take a look in the graph editor, and we can see that the colors, the red is not that good still. I might change this to something else, but the green and blue I like with these settings. The original ones you get default, I find them very annoying to look at. What more do we have? We can, under additional, we have the rest of the user interface. So we have the window background. That's the dark gray you see here. Node editor background, that's obvious what that is. And the viewport background is what we see in the viewport. You have to make this fairly dark. If you make it too bright, it will cause problems with other colors. It's difficult to get something useful with a white background, for example, here, but you can do it. The grid and the axis colors and the label colors, that's the button labels. The outline of the buttons, that's the border around the button. And then the orange color here is when a button is active. So that's a toggle button normally. If we let's close this, and if I enable dynamics click on it, it gets gray, and orange means it's active. So it is a toggle button. It stands out a little bit and easy to see. That's why I have that. We can set the button selected text color, and then we have the tree colors. If you want to change these, you can play around and see what you like best. Best thing here is to just experiment and see what colors that you find work best. Remember that sometimes you have to restart layout to see the colors. You can hide the toolbar if you want that. We can, if we want to display the origin only, or if we want to show the grid. We have grid anti-aliasing. I turn it off simply because I think it makes it faster. We have a fixed near clipping distance. Sometimes when you zoom in and object gets close to the camera, it starts clipping them and you can't see them. It can be annoying. The easiest way to fix that is to enable fixed near clipping distance here and set the distance. Just play with that and it will work out fine. We can set how many vertices we want to as a threshold for bounding boxes. So when you drag things around and it gets too complex scene and gets too slow, it will switch to bounding boxes instead. What more do we have? Let's see here. We can, if we switch to the camera view, we have the show safe areas. I don't really use the safe areas, but it's a good indication that you are in camera views. That's why I have this enabled. I quickly see that, oh, okay, this is the camera. We can set the alternative aspect overlay. It's just the gray area at the bottom and the top there, you see. We can enable fog or not if we want to see that in OpenGL, and the field chart. I really don't use that. I usually just find it annoying, but yep, it's there. Do we have anything else? The limited region handles. I don't really, let's see here. We we have the OpenGL settings. This is more for performance, really, what you want to show or not. Motion path is usually good to have enabled. Sometimes it gets too cluttered, so you can just switch off things. If you want fog circles, also nice when you setting up fog, but otherwise not so much. I use a fairly low texture setting here, 512 by 512. That's quite low, but it saves memory. We have the geometry acceleration. So you can use streaming mode, which is basically classic old OpenGL 1.1 mode, where you use GL begin and a lot of GL vertex and GL end. So we don't actually use GPU memory. You can feed it enormous amounts of geometry without actually running out of GPU memory. It's quite a bit slower, and usually it's a better idea to simply make the scene simpler using bounding boxes and disable geometry that's not being used. But if you really need, you can use this. Buffered mode is much faster, so use the default here normally. That works better. Transparency, sort by object is a default, and that's the fastest one. You can get a little bit better transparency by using the other ones. I usually have transparency disabled anyway, so it doesn't make any big difference. Schematic view, we have a few settings to play with here. They're fairly obvious what they do. I don't use the schematic view that much, but sometimes it's good. Handles and icons are quite useful. We can, let's switch to perspective mode. And here we have the camera, and we can set the size of handles, for example, and the camera size and so on. Let's get something. We can select the camera, but let's create an object. A sphere here, like this. So there, we have a sphere. We remove this away, and we have the gizmo here, and we can set the size of the gizmo, how big we want this. I have mine fairly big. I think it's easier to find it, but you can set any size you want here, and that's quite nice. Let's remove this. We don't need it anymore. We also have the camera. Here is very small now, but yeah, we can set the camera size. It's a relative size, so it adjusts itself to the scene, but we can set the size here if you prefer it big or small. Sometimes it gets in the way, hiding things. You can either move it around, not show it, or you can make it smaller. The same thing with the lights here. We can set the size of the light sources. We can also set the bone icon size. That's just how big the bones are. I don't have any bones right here right now, but it works the same way. You can, if you want to show them filled, and draw joint rotation tripod. It's a small little red, green, blue coordinate system showing up on each bone. It's mostly very annoying because you get one on each bone. So I have it disabled, but you have it there if you need it. Then we have the thicker gizmo handles. I always have this on. It makes the gizmo arrows more easy to grab, a little bit bigger size. Let's see, do we have anything else here that could be interesting? Let's see, not much. So let's fire up Modeler here. It's fairly similar. D for display or O for options, and we get here, we can set, we want to show here the guides, the normals, and grid, and same thing here. Colors of the things in the scene, the background color. You have to keep this dark because of the way you can't change some colors. So you really need a dark background, otherwise it will be strange in some places. But you can change the exactly how dark you want it or what color and so on. Selected points and selected edges and selected polygons, the colors on each one of those if you want to change these. Different colors is easy because that means you can see what it is you have selected, if it's points, edges, or polygons, and so on. The HUD, that's the head-up display. When you have some tools, you can set the color of that and the opacity. And then we have the fixed normal length. Normally this is set, normals are set automatically for you if you have show normals enabled. So that let's, we need need something to select so we can show the normal. So let's make a box here. UV mode. Let's switch to perspective and draw something there and press enter so we get some object there. Okay, so normals show up when we select a polygon, and we have show normals enabled. So if I click on this, we get a normal showing up there, and normally this normals and normal. Yeah. Anyway, it's an automatic size length if we have this to 0, but we can set whatever we want here, and then we get a fixed size length of the normal showing up. This, if you have lots of polygons, it can get cluttered, and sometimes it's nice to be able to set the length here so it doesn't get in the way of other things if it's too long or too short, or if you want them very long or whatever. So we can do that. You can set how many viewports and all that stuff. You already know that. OpenGL settings is fairly similar to layout, what we want to show, and transparency, sorting, geometry, acceleration. That's all what we had before, pretty much. Here we can just viewports. We can set independent center, independent rotation, and independent zoom is quite nice, because by default it will zoom and move all the viewports at the same time. Here you can change if you want one zooming in one to affect the other ones or not, and things like that. Best thing here is to experiment with them and see what they do, and play around to find the settings that works best for you. Again, I have very low texture resolution because I usually don't need the textures most of the time, so waste of memory to have the full textures loaded in here. Okay, I think that's most of the things here. There's not that much else. You can set independent background color also if you want. Let's see. I think we went over most of the settings here. We have the backdrop. You can load that if you want a reference image or something to draw on top of. And then we have interface. That's you can hide the toolbar and viewport titles, just like in layout. Customize interface colors. It's very similar to layout here also. The channel colors, additional, we set the different buttons and the colors you want to use in them. This is the same as in layout, pretty much, just you don't have the exact same colors everywhere. Okay, I think that covers most of the stuff here. You can of course pick if you want to use a system dialog or file dialog or color picker or the LightWave specific ones. The color picker in LightWave is much better, of course, than Windows color picker, but the file dialog, I always use this system one. The unit settings doesn't have much to do with the user interface, but yeah, I think that's it. Experiment and see if you like it and what fits you best. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon again.